Hi, this is Clayton with iCEV, and thanks for joining us today for our iCEV and shop classes session. We're very excited to have Nick Cotter with us today, and he's going to talk a little bit about how he uses iCEV for his shop type classes. Hello, Nick. Thanks for joining us.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So first question, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your program, how long you've been teaching and things like that.
Yeah, so I teach at Rantoul Township High School. It's here in central Illinois, about 20 minutes away from Champaign. It's a two-teacher program. I would say it's a little urban. We have in the school, probably, I don't know, there's probably 2,000 maybe. I can't think of the exact numbers, but we have about 115 in the ag program, so pretty good size. It's a two-teacher program. I've been teaching now going into my third year. Studied at the University of Illinois, went into ag business, so teaching was not my plan A. Something I had kind of had in the back of my brain, and ag sales wasn't necessarily for me, and I really wanted to teach. So I've absolutely loved the first 2 years here at Rantoul and just teaching in general. So that's a little bit about me, I guess.
Awesome. Well, let's hop into the presentation. I'm going to come over here and I am going to make you the host. So that way you can share your screen if you would like. So let's do that real quick.
All righty. All right. So hopefully you should be able to see iCEV here pulled up on my homepage.
We have it. So I guess just to start, like I know you've been teaching 3 years. What's your background with iCEV? How long have you been using that in your class?
So I am a new user with iCEV. I've only used it for 1 year now. Absolutely enjoyed it for the 1 year and definitely plan on using it next year and beyond. But still fairly new, still learning some things along the way. As last year was my first year using it, and obviously didn't even get to use it for the whole year.
Right. So what's your favorite feature on iCEV?
I think my favorite feature and kind of what sold me to begin with was the automatic grading. I mean, there's a lot of cool features, and it's very clean and organized, but I think by far is the automatic grading. So as you can see here on the left side is my classes. I teach. The other teacher teaches a lot of the science-based classes. I here at Rantoul teach a lot of the shop classes. So as you can see here, I've got ag machine service, home maintenance and repair, and basic ag mech. So it kind of starts out with a freshman in basic ag mechanics, and then they can move on to either the home maintenance and repair side of things or the ag machine service. So a lot of shop classes, which is what we're kind of here to talk about and how to use iCEV with that today. So like if you go to my home maintenance or repair classes and of course see all of the things, I guess another really cool thing that I liked is that I could pull in units from different areas that I wanted to. So it wasn't, there are, you guys on iCEV here have classes already laid out if you want to use those. But then I like the idea of pulling in some units from various classes that I may want to throw into my home maintenance or repair class. Maybe for some reason it was part of an ag mechanics route and I pulled it in here. So that was a cool feature. So these are all of the units that I had on here. We may not have gone through all of them as a class last year. And you can see what I made visible to students and hid from students at the time. But if you go to this specific unit, in this case, hand tool ID and terminology, and just there are printable versions of everything, different crosswords, different projects, vocab, worksheets, as well as the assessments and tests and things like that. So you can print them out. Most of the time last year, I did the interactive. I really liked the interactive part of it. I know my kids really enjoyed that part of it. So this is how I used it last year. I didn't print a whole lot out. We did a lot of stuff when we were in the classroom anyway, a lot of stuff on the computer and to kind of let them work through it on their own. So as you can see here, visible to students, I gave them a lot of attempts on the activities, whereas the assessments I gave them 1 attempt on. But as I said before, I think my favorite feature is the automatic grading. So those assessments, it has the answers for, and will automatically grade it. Saves time on my part. and then I can just put those grades immediately into the grade book. So I think, I'm not sure where let's go back to, sorry about that. Let's go back to 8th hour. I think I got rid of all my students in that one from last year. So I'll go to my 8th hour home maintenance and repair class. And tool and ID. So student grade reports here. And I think I only left one student in there for an example. Yep. So, and you can go here and you can choose their last score, the first score. So if you gave them multiple attempts, I typically, most of the time, pick the highest score is kind of how I did it last year. And then you can do it by a percentage or items is typically what I did. And there are the grades right there for you. Just saves a lot of time on my end to do that. So like I said, I think that's my favorite feature.
Super. So, thinking about this, because shop classes are generally very hands-on, right? How did you incorporate the iCEV curriculum side of things and the assets there, and then transition that into any sort of into like the shop setting? How did you work that in?
Yeah, so I guess I'll stick. So I used it primarily. I used iCEV primarily for my home maintenance class. I did use it in my ag mechanics and my ag machine service here and there. But I used this mostly in my home maintenance class last year, simply for the fact that your guys' videos are awesome. Really up to date. I think the only one that was a little bit older was the hand tool and terminology, but still really good content. There really wasn't much updating that needed done. But the videos that you guys offer just added to what I had to tell the kids and my explanations of how to build a house from the ground up. And so the videos that you guys offered were really awesome. It is a very hands-on class. Something kind of unique about Rantoul is we actually partner with an older subdivision that was built when we've got an old Air Force base in Rantoul. It's not operable anymore. But back in the day when it was, they built these houses out there for all the officers and things like that. So it's an older subdivision. It's getting kind of run down, but we have partnered with them to bring the classes in and do actual work on the houses inside. So, it might be electrical work or drywall work or things like that. All things that this iCEV curriculum covers. So the second half of the semester is primarily when we spend time out there. So it was nice for the first part of the semester to use this and use these interactive things on the computer for them to work through in class, so that they knew what we were doing when we got out to the and doing actual work in the actual houses. So that's kind of how I used it. And even that second semester, we weren't out there every single day. So the days that we were in the classroom, they were able to get on here and watch videos, or I would talk through them on PowerPoints and things like that, and use the interactive vocabulary and worksheets to kind of understand what was going on before we did the actual hands-on work. So yeah, and there's sometimes where I let the students work through things at their own pace, whereas other times I would show the video as the entire class as a whole. For example, this hand tool and terminology I thought was really it was more beneficial for them to kind of go through the videos on their own and kind of work through the worksheets on their own. Whereas when we got to talking about building that house from the ground up, when we talked about framing and roofing and insulation, I thought it was more important for me to show the video to the class as a whole. That way I could kind of stop where I wanted and kind of interject and maybe add some things, or we'd have class discussions about it. So that's just some of the things that I thought, kind of how it worked with this hands-on class here.
Awesome. So I think you're probably referring to that construction series that starts from the foundation and flooring, and then goes all the way to putting the roof on the house and everything in between. Is that the video series you're referring to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So one thing I share with you, and then those that are listening here as well. So the gentleman that is on those, he's very similar to your program, in that the kids that are helping build those homes, they donate that at the end of when they finish, to Habitat for Humanity. So they're kind of doing the same thing. Is they'll go in class, watch the videos, right, and then they go out behind the shop and they build the home, and then donate that to Habitat for Humanity. So I think that's really cool, the programs that you guys have, that you're not only teaching these students skills, right, skills that are going to help them be employable, but you're also teaching them about giving back too. So I think that's really cool, the things that you guys do with your programs.
Yep.
So what one strategy, if you had to give one strategy to one of a colleague, what would that be for for implementing iCEV? And as you know, you're in year one using it. So they think about a brand new person. What would be one strategy that you would give them?
I think the one that I mean, there's probably plenty, but the one that comes to mind right now is just kind of what I mentioned about there's times where you can use this for students like to kind of work on their own. Our school is moving to standards-based grading. I'm not sure if anyone that will be watching this is familiar with it, or maybe they already have standards-based grading. But that's kind of what we're moving to. My home maintenance class last year was not standards-based. My ag mechanics was, but I will be transitioning to it this year. And I think this platform is really good for that, because with the standards base, the kids kind of work through it on their own instead of the class being all on the same page. It's kind of sounds like a mess, but in the end, I think it'll really be nice. But the kids kind of work through it on their own. So that's what I thought was really cool about this is there were plenty of units that had those videos that I trusted that the students could just watch through and get the information without me having to explain it, like that hand tool ID and terminology. So I would say I guess that would, I don't know if I explained it the best, but I guess there are times to let the students work through it on their own, and there are times where you might want to actually use the PowerPoints and videos and lecture yourself. It's just going to depend on your teaching style, I guess, when you want to do that. But I don't think
I could see like what you're talking about, like the hand tool where they could, that's not simple, that's the wrong word to use, right? But that's something that they could learn on their own. But if you're talking about like framing and the safety that's involved and all of that, you're probably going to want to be leading that discussion, right? You're probably going to want to show that video with you while you're in there with your kids, and you can help lead and guide those types of discussions. Is that what you're trying to say?
correct.
Just depends on the
Yes.
content, right? Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Because that stuff that hopefully most of them have been in my basic ag mechanics, that they know the tools and the hand tools and the power tools well enough that it's just kind of a review. So that's kind of how I use it, and I let them work through it on their own. Where, like you're saying, when it comes to the drywall and stuff like that, that's stuff that most of them have not experienced before. So the videos on here and the PowerPoints on here are a great resource to use. I just do it in front of the entire class on the big screen so that I'm able to stop it when I want and talk about it. So I think that's the biggest piece of advice I'd have. But then again, I've only been using it for a year. So
if you do me a favor and go back to the course view of your page here, because you did bring up something that I think is very interesting, because you talked about how you liked to add some things in. So I assume you used that customize this course feature, right? So you clicked
correct.
on that, and so you
This
probably
right here,
took the course the way our curriculum developers had made it, like out of the box, and then you came in and rearranged and added lessons. So I just wanted to make sure that folks understood that you can take the courses the way that our curriculum folks have put them together, or you can take them and then come in and customize, because you're going to have access to all lessons that relate to shop type classes, ag mech type classes, and you can build your course that best fits your needs and your kids' needs.
Yep. And then on top of that too, I came across something that I didn't originally know. I found out about halfway through this, is the creating your own assessment. So I liked most of the assessments. There were just a couple of questions that I would have changed here and there. Or someone might have an assessment from before even having an iCEV subscription that they just really like their test or their quiz or whatever that they gave, and they can come in here and create their own assessment. You can click on your lessons here and title it, and then go through and click your type of question, whether it's multiple choice, true and false, short answer, things like that. So I thought that was something cool that I found out after using this for a little while. So yeah, you can definitely make it your own. I think that's what's cool about it too. It's not just cut and dry. You can throw your own stuff in there as well.
Awesome. So we talked about some strategies. The next question was, what piece of advice would you offer to someone utilizing iCEV?
So I think and this seems very small, but I did not do the online training. I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of figure it out myself, and that was fine. I learned a lot from that, but a first time, especially a first time user, I would recommend doing the online training. I think you could learn a lot from it and answer a lot of questions because, like I said, I think that creating assessment thing was kind of an important thing that I didn't realize at first that you could do that. It took me a little while to figure that out. And there may be some odds and ends still that I don't know about. So I think the biggest thing for a first time user is to schedule that online training and really learn as much as you can about it because this iCEV has a lot to offer.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I don't know if you could hover your mouse over the top of that button right there. There's that button up at the top. So anyone who has access to a subscription, they have that at their disposal. So you can schedule, calendar opens, and you can schedule a time that's convenient to you. And Nick's spot on. 15 minutes is all that it takes. And we can answer your questions one-on-one. And like you said, it's not that it's not intuitive and you can't figure, it's very easy to figure out and navigate, but in a short 15 minutes, it can make that onboarding process a lot smoother and just a little more simple. And then also too, like you said, there's some things that we can point out that you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was there, right? So we can help point out some of those features that you may not have happened onto.
Yep.
Any other tips or tricks that you would like to share? About using iCEV as a curriculum source?
I I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you want me at all to go through how to manage a roster or course grades report, or if you're going to have another session that kind of covers that. I don't really have any more tips and tricks off the top of my head.
How about this question? So now that you know what you know, right, using iCEV, and I know that
Hmm.
we're probably going to, be a little bit uncertain this fall in terms of what classes are going to look like, right? Are they going to be in person? Are they going to be half in person or, some in class and things like that? So knowing what you know after using it for a year, what do you anticipate doing differently this time?
Um, I don't know if I would do anything differently because I say that because I think the way I was doing it last year, and how much I was using this when we were in the classroom, how much I was using these interactive worksheets and things like this. I think a lot of it could be done remotely, and I found that out actually this last spring when all of this happened because I don't know how a lot of other people's schools work, but the way ours worked is we were sending out some supplemental things, especially those core classes. But with a class like mine and how hands-on it was, we were in that home maintenance class was right in the middle of doing a lot of work out there in that we call that subdivision Hope Meadows. We were right in the middle of working out there in those homes and hanging drywall and fixing some bathrooms up and things like that. So obviously that couldn't be done. So I was able to send some stuff out on here. And then, but our main focus this spring was helping those kids that weren't doing as well in our class up to that point and getting them, especially those seniors, so that they were able to graduate. Uh, and this was super easy to be like, hey, look, you didn't turn this worksheet in. Just hop on iCEV and finish the worksheet or finish that assessment so that it'll bump your grade up a little bit. So that's kind of how I use it this spring. But obviously, when I first heard this next going into this next year that it would be, we were talking at first about having like half of the class in there one day while the rest of that class was at home doing remote learning. I mean, this this iCEV would be awesome for that because they can log in at home and work on their worksheets or vocab or whatever I assign to them. Instead of me having to, whatever other curriculum resources I use, I might have to print the papers out and have them in a folder for them to just come to the school and pick up. It just takes a lot more time on both people's ends where they can just hop on online at home and they can watch the videos for themselves. They can watch, they can go through the PowerPoints on their own. And then when they do come into class, we can use that valuable time to do the labs in class and go out to Hope Meadows and work in those homes this year, if that's what it's going to look like. So, um, the first thing I thought of this year when they said, you might have to teach some remote, some in class, I immediately thought, well, iCEV is going to be great because that's kind of how I used it last year. Kids were able to do stuff from home, and like I said, those kids that this spring needed to get caught up on things could just log into iCEV. They didn't need me to print things out for them and try and get them to their house or wherever. Just logging on remotely and finishing those assessments and things. So that's what I liked about it, and what might be handy this coming fall.
Awesome. Well, I think we're about going probably bumping up on our time here. So if you'll do me a favor and switch me back to the host, and we'll wrap up here real quick.
Yep. All right.
All right. Well, so thanks for joining us today on iCEV in your shop classes. And if you'll hang tight, and we'll participate in our Q&A session in just a moment.